All right, welcome back. Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is ringing in the changes when it comes to BEE regulations at state-owned enterprises. He's gazetted new preferential procurement rules. This means state-owned entities no longer have to disqualify suppliers for not meeting BEE requirements. Now, let's get some reaction from Kganki Matabane. He's the CEO of the Black Business Council. Mr. Matabane, thank you very much for your time here on ENC. I assume because your council represents black businesses in South Africa, you're not very happy about these changes.
Thank you very much for having us, and good morning. We're actually disappointed, and disappointed mainly because National Treasury is failing to take responsibility and actually do its job as per the Constitution. They are also creating unnecessary commotion and confusion in the system and in the market. Because the National Treasury's job is to provide uniformity in procurement. So what's going to happen now, we've got so many state organs, because that basically applies to all government departments, local governments, municipalities, SOCs, and everyone else who's a state organ. So what this means is that there's no guidance as to how the tenders should actually be adjudicated, and each state organ must basically do its own thing. And then that is very, very disappointing, because they say 20% or 10% points that are supposed to, we're going to a local content and black economic empowerment. But now the organs of state are basically given a blank check to say, do as you wish. And our worry is that, as we have seen in the past 28 years with the little transformation that has happened, where there are no rules, people will just disregard transformation and actually do as they wish. So we were hoping and we're calling on the National Treasury to actually even address the nation on the confusion that they've caused, to make sure that transformation does not regress. Instead of regressing, we're supposed to be actually increasing the regulations and increasing the requirements so that we can have the majority playing a meaningful role in the economy.
This, of course, comes from the fact that earlier this year, the Constitutional Court is what found to have what happened when the former Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, was at the helm. What he decided in 2014 for 100% BEE to only be considered at SOEs. This is what the Constitutional Court found illegal. So that's what the Minister Godongwana is trying to fix, isn't he? It's about the implementation of BEE and how we've seen it already bring up a lot of corruption at SOEs. Wouldn't you agree?
No, that's not necessarily true. So the Constitutional Court did not find anything wrong with the black economic empowerment and localization. The Constitutional Court found that the minister did not have the rights to prescribe to organs of state. But now, instead of the minister giving guidance to organs of state on how they should score BEE when they do tenders, the minister is actually basically throwing his hands in the air and abdicating his roles as required by the Constitution. Remember, transformation comes from Section 217 of the Constitution. So the minister, I think, is running away from those who took him to court, which for us is a lack of political will. When you've got political will, you have to take decisions that are in the interest of the country. We cannot afford a situation where the majority who have been excluded by law in the past are then kept perpetually excluded by even the democratic government that is supposed to empower them. And that is not sustainable, because remember, in South Africa, we are trying to empower the majority.
So you don't believe that black people will get business anyway, even if state-owned enterprises make the decision?
As things stand, they were not even getting enough business anyway. So this will just make things worse. Those people who are anti-transformation will use these regulations and the confusion that is caused by National Treasury to actually as they say, throw the baby with the bathwater, and basically make sure that no black-owned company, no women-owned company, no youth-owned company, no company owned by people with disabilities get any opportunities. And then remember, the state procurement is very, very important for transformation, because private sector, they are still giving businesses to their friends. And they say because it's not state money, it's not taxpayers' money, they can do as they wish. But in the state is supposed to use, like National Party did when they took power, is to use the state organs and state information and state procurement to empower black people who are in the majority, to empower women. And then remember, the president always say we need to set aside 40% of procurement for women. This will never happen, because these are the regulations that are supposed to make sure that speech of the president is implemented. So that we were calling on the minister to come and actually clarify, but also develop political will so that he can push transformation forward instead of regressing transformation.
So for the moment, it's at least for him to clarify, because you believe that he's abdicated his duties, of course, and is taking away responsibility from his office. But isn't that what the Constitutional Court ruled, that he cannot be the end-all and be-all of procurement in every state-owned enterprise? So what would you have expected him to do?
We expected him to give guidance, because at the moment there's no guidance. He has basically left everything in limbo. And then also the other thing, we are busy discussing the legislation that is going to replace this. We're discussing this at NEDEC, and then disappointingly, at the end of the day, the new legislation itself does not have set aside, for example, 40% for women, set aside for people living with disabilities, youth, and so on. And we're calling again on the minister to make sure that the new legislation that is going to replace this ensures that black people are going to be empowered.
So, Mr. Matabane, do you think that because Sakalecha actually got information through, the Promotion of Access to Information Act, they made an application and they found out that Treasury has had about 760 applications by different SOEs, whether it be national, provincial, or local government, asking them to exempt them from the previous regulation, because, for instance, Eskom and Minister Godongwana were saying that we need to procure IPPs, right? And for us to procure these IPPs, we need to look at everyone. Otherwise, we're forcing international companies to only partner with certain people because they meet the 100% BEE requirements here. So do you think that also put them under pressure as Treasury, because they've had so many applications from different state-owned enterprises and departments asking for exemption, and they've had to always say no because of that 2017 decision as well?
Yeah, I think Sakalecha is a bit, they are misinterpreting the issues. The reason why people applied for exemptions is that when the Constitutional Court came, National Treasury again created confusion. They said all the organs of state must stop procurement. But you can't work like that, because business must continue. So organs of state were not applying for exemptions not to comply with black economic empowerment. They were saying, National Treasury, we cannot not do business while you are busy getting clarification from the Constitutional Court. So that has got nothing to do with the people wanting to get away and not doing localization. It's just they are creating misinformation deliberately to suit their narrative. That was not the case. There will be one or two cases, for example, where Eskom tried to apply for exemption from PFMA, and they were rightfully denied. Because we know the director is not a friend of economic transformation, so he was trying to get out of economic transformation. And we're happy that the new board last week clarified that they support economic transformation, they support preferential procurement, because that's the way to go. State-owned enterprises were used to create African businesses, and they can be used now to create black businesses and women-owned businesses.
So, Mr. Matabane, in terms of the BEE process at all, do you agree, though, that in terms of how we implement it, it's a very good policy, right? But the regulations sometimes and the implementation of the regulations, would you agree that they have actually put a bad light on a very good policy?
Remember, BEE, like all the other legislations, are not perfect. And you are never going to find anywhere in the world any perfect legislation. But our job as leaders in the country, when we realize that a certain regulation or legislation is being abused, is to flag it to policymakers so that we can change it, instead of saying we must do away with it. Where there are instances, for example, there were instances of fronting. Will not be that fronting must be criminalized, and at the moment fronting is criminalized. So those who are fronting and then they are caught, they will face criminal legislation. So let's find those instances where people are abusing, for example, abusing localization, where someone, for example, will have a PA and themselves, and then they import everything from outside the country. That is not localization. That is fronting. So those type of things we need to deal with them. So because it's not perfect, let's find those imperfections in it and let's correct them. Let's not say we must do away with economic empowerment, because remember, we still have blacks owning less than 5% of the economy. We've got almost 70% of the CEOs of JSE listed companies being white males. It tells you that transformation is not moving at the pace that we want. But let's improve it instead of condemning it and wanting to find opportunistic ways of getting rid of it. It's never going to happen anyway, because it will only happen when the ownership and control of the economy reflects the demographics of the country.
Yeah. And just lastly and very quickly, Mr. Matabane, these new regulations that the Minister has gazetted already on the 4th of this month are expected to actually be implemented, I think, around the 16th of January, if I'm not mistaken. And you're saying that he needs to announce guidelines. So I'm assuming you're thinking he can relinquish his powers to make sure that procurement is only in his office, but probably give the SOEs guidelines in terms of what they're allowed to and what they are not allowed to do, instead of saying they can just hire whoever they want, right? So what are you going to do in this, month or less than 2 months' time before this is implemented?
Yeah, we've already requested a meeting with the minister. We've requested a meeting with the chief procurement officer at the National Treasury, so that they can utilize the time between now and implementation to actually provide clarification, because they can't leave things the way they are. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Matabane. That was Kganki Matabane. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Business Council, reacting on the Minister of Finance announcement that regulations around BEE will be changed at SOE level.